Well, thank you all for being here tonight. Again, we are grateful that you're able to be a part of this as we go through, again, kind of the final conclusions, recommendations for the new school study. I also want to just introduce another colleague of mine, Steve Mahalik. He is also here joining as a partner to Meitler, and he will be here to answer any questions after we go through this report as well. So right now I would like to just kind of explain the format, how we're going to go through this. I'm just going to ask that any questions and things be saved until the end. We're going to go through kind of our report, and then we'll open it up for discussion and questions once we're done there. So as we go through this, in looking at the possibility of a school in the Boerne area in the Archdiocese of San Antonio, there are many, many different facets and things that have come into play in terms of research, data analysis, demographics, school enrollment trends, parish enrollment trends, and we're really going to just kind of go through and share all of that with you. We'll share with you too kind of our methodology, what we've used. Again, I see a lot of familiar faces in this room as we've had a lot of opportunities to sit and speak and share and ask for your opinions, your feedback, and your vision and what you hope to see in the future of St. Peter's Parish and the possibility of a school here as well. In doing so, we had a committee that was called the Steering Committee, and they were really kind of our right-hand man throughout this process. They worked with us to develop the vision. They worked with us in really putting together the survey, the questions that were on it, making sure that it got pushed out through the parishes, through the local community, and so we really are grateful for the time, dedication, and commitment that this committee has shared with us throughout this process, and just really having that local insight, that local flavor of kind of what is the current reality and where do we go from here. We're going to start first by going through the demographic data. And as we do that, we're going to really look at general population trends. We're going to break it down by child age groupings. We're going to look at makeup by race, ethnicity, median family household income. And I'm going to kind of explain to you why those are so important as we look at, again, the possibility of opening up a Catholic school in this area. The general population in this study area has been increasing in all areas between 2010 and 2021. Expected projections are continuing to increase from 2021 to 2026. I don't think this is surprising or new news to any of you. Driving in from San Antonio, coming up here to Boerne, you see it, right? You see all of the growth, you see all of the updates and new buildings that are coming into play. You'll see that there is a long list of zip codes that were included in this study, and the way that we gathered those zip codes is we first looked at the parishes. So we pulled the registered households and we looked at where are they currently coming from. We did the same thing for the local Catholic schools. I will tell you, you're very unique in this area that the zip codes that are representative of your parishes are different zip codes than what are representative of your Catholic schools. Primarily because the Catholic children that live in this area are not attending the Catholic schools that are closest by. And you'll see that as we kind of go throughout this report. Projected growth from 2021 to 2026 in all zip codes will increase 7.9%, or an additional 100,000 people. Continued growth indicates the population base necessary to sustain a new school program in the study area. So again, we don't want to just look out over the next 2, 3, 4 years and say, can you build a school here? The last thing we want to do is build a school and in less than 10 years it's closing, right? That trend we're seeing all too often around the country. We're using these population projections, projected growth, which as you can see again in the far right corner, or far right column, all of those numbers are positive. I will tell you that for those of you that can't see it. Bigger? I will tell you too that not all of the tables are this big. So in terms of the demographics, they are, just because we're pulling so many. I know. Yep. Okay. So again, total population by zip code. I will tell you though that in the far right column, we're looking at 2021 to 2026%, and that those are all in the positives. So every zip code that was analyzed throughout this study, the study areas, you're seeing sustainability, if not growth, in each one of those zip codes. We also met with the city planner here in Boerne. There's a lot of growth west of I-10, east and west out Highway 46. People are moving closer to comfort as the cost of living increases in the city of Boerne. Young families are moving into the area because of the positive reputation of the public school district. So in looking south and closer to San Antonio, Fair Oaks is showing the greatest increases in population. So those were some areas that the city of Boerne planner was able to kind of direct us also in looking at population projections and potential growth in the study area moving forward. Want to go to child age? All right, from here now you're going to see 4 different tables. Each of these tables is broken down by certain age groups. So the first age group that you see here is ages 0 to 4. Again, these are the same zip codes that you saw in the first figure. Notable growth projections in the 0 to 4 age group, we have 3 zip codes where the growth is above 10%. Again, we use this, and this is great in looking at, again, potential sustainability, long-term sustainability, and certain zip codes that we can be marketing to, especially if we're looking at, let's say, a pre-K kindergarten. If we know that those populations have significant growth in those zip codes, we want to make sure that we're targeting those zip codes when we're marketing for a pre-K kindergarten. The next age group is 5 to 9. Similarly, we have 3 zip codes where the growth there is above 8%, specifically San Antonio, Bulverde. Ages 10 to 14, we have 2 zip codes above 8%. I will tell you the national trend right now in the 10 to 14 age group, there's a steady decrease around the country in the 10 to 14 age group. So again, knowing that you have potential opportunities for growth will be significant in potential marketing and planning. Age 15 to 17. Yep, I'll give her a minute. (15 to 17), we have significant growth in this age group in comfort. Comfort is projected to grow 17% in this age group over the next 5 years. The 78240 San Antonio Leon Valley is projected to grow 13% in the next 5 years. Monte Vista, 13.4% growth. 78261 zip code, 11.5% growth. San Antonio Leon Valley, 11.1% growth. So again, we're looking at significant growth in certain zip codes that are part of this study area in each of these age groups. So overall, if we kind of pull all these together, the age range projections for the study area show growth for 2026. The 0 to 4 age group is showing 4.6% growth, 5 to 9, 5.1% growth, 10 to 14, 3.2% growth, and 15 to 17, 4.2% growth. Again, I don't think this is new news to any of you that have been in this area. We also looked at each one of these zip codes in terms of race and ethnicity. There's not a big significant shift in population trends by race or ethnicity over the next 5 years. The percentage of white as a percent of the total population is decreasing, but the following are increasing. Black or African American from 5.1 to 5.4% of total population in this area. Asian 3.9 to 4.4%. And Hispanic or Latino 52.5 to 54.4% of total population. We also pulled median family household income. This is for families with children 18 years or younger. So in viewing the socioeconomic experience of the geographic area, this indicates the midpoint of all income levels. So those that live in these zip codes, half are above this number, half are below this number. In our experiences as a company, We're celebrating our 50th year this year, and part of that has been conducting these new school studies for the last 50 years. We've developed some metrics that we use specifically to looking at median family household income and what's deemed as affordable for families in terms of looking at tuition. What we have found is that families that are in lower income areas are generally able to commit approximately 4 to 6% of their gross income to tuition for one child without making too many compromises. Families in the middle income levels, they're usually willing to commit approximately 6 to 8 or upwards of 10% of their gross income to tuition. And for upper middle to upper income areas, they're willing to devote approximately 12 to 15% of their gross income to tuition without making compromises. What we have found is that once you start pushing beyond that 15%, that number starts to drop off drastically. Now that tuition is viewed as unaffordable. It's too much of a compromise for families to be able to sacrifice paying tuition for their one child if you're looking at beyond 15%. We do not use this metric to tell or work with a school on what they should set their tuition rate at. We use it more as a measure to say how much tuition assistance should you be ready and able to provide to families in those different socioeconomic areas. You'll see that there's a wide range from $56,000 up to over $200,000. Are we marketing the same way to each one of those zip codes, to each one of those families? You really have to consider the families that have multiple children. Similarly, what you'll see is just again, kind of as a reference point, we looked at tuition rates that are currently in the Archdiocese, and we were able to kind of compare those to, again, the median family household income in this area. And what we found from that is based on the average elementary tuition, middle school tuition, and high school tuition that families in this area would be able to currently afford or view as affordable, are willing and able to pay the average tuition rate that is currently set in the Archdiocese of San Antonio. All right, now we're going to go through the section that is specific to the survey. Survey methodology, again, we really relied on the parishes, the religious faith formation programs, the DREs, the Archdiocese of San Antonio pushed it out. We had support from the Bernie Chamber of Commerce pushed it out, Facebook. I mean, there were so many different ways that we really relied on the local community to get this survey out. And because of that, I can share with you that the final database included 923 unique households, total of 492 responses from households with children in the targeted study group. Total of 1,089 children are represented in this survey. 258 ages 0 to 4, 93 ages 5 and 6, 368 grades 1 through 5, 172 in grades 6 through 8, and 198 in grades 9 through 12. We deem this as more than satisfactory in terms of response rate, number of children that are represented throughout this survey to be able to draw adequate conclusions, recommendations, and to increase the validity and reliability of these results. All right, looking at the respondents, so again, we have a variety of cities and towns. We had 7 total in the target area that were represented, with the majority residing in the 78006 and 78015 zip codes, specifically in the Bernie area. You will notice that the majority of survey respondents are mothers. And again, we look at this for a reason. This has actually shifted over the last 15 years. 15 to 20 years ago, it was very much that the fathers were the ones kind of making decisions, filling these kinds of things out. And so we've seen a shift in that. And again, as we look at potential marketing or recruitment or parent ambassador programs, you know, who are the decision makers in the family? Who are the ones that the school could be working more closely with in terms of trying to have that conversation about what they're looking for? This goes to show that the mothers are the ones that are doing that. For those that did not have children 18 or younger, we really just kind of wanted some additional anecdotal data to look at, what that lifestyle looks like, what the household looks like. So that's just anecdotal. Again, breakout by race and ethnicity, pretty similar to what we're seeing around the general study area. Within the schools and area currently, 67% white, 29% Hispanic. This we look at again, how many years the respondent has lived in the Boerne area. This is also very telling. And again, we want to look at not just how interested are people, but how invested are people in a decision like this, in a study like this, in looking at, again, the long-term sustainability. You have over 50%, or exactly 50% of respondents who have lived in the Boerne area over 10 years. Again, it bodes to show kind of the long-term investment that's in this community in looking at a potential for a new school. Out of those that filled out the survey, we asked how many attended Catholic school themselves. It's pretty split 50-50. The table over on the right is pretty standard from what we see. The number starts to decrease as you move from elementary to middle school to high school to college. And then we asked, out of those who took the survey, are there other members in your household that attended Catholic school? And you'll see a similar trend there. It's about 50-50. Then we looked at parishes where survey respondents came from. So parishes in the cities of Boerne, greatest majority coming from here, St. Peter the Apostle Catholic Church, and San Antonio had the highest percentages of those taking the survey. As you can see, 66% of all survey respondents came from St. Peter. Then we asked 5 questions to all respondents that filled out the survey. And these were really just, do you agree with this statement or not? And so the numbers and percentages that I'm going to give you are actually a combination of agree and somewhat agree. So looking at the first one, 97% of all respondents agree that a Catholic school is an effective way to help parents educate their children in the Catholic faith. 88% of respondents agree that a Catholic school is an essential ministry of a parish's faith formation program. 89% of respondents agree the value and benefit of a Catholic school justifies the cost to build and operate it. 88% agree that a new Catholic school should be planned and opened in Boerne. 69% of all respondents agree in financially supporting the creation of a new Catholic school in Boerne. Again, we want to look at the subsequent shift in these percentages to again be able to really assess interest versus investment. Okay? And we'll get into the numbers a little bit more. This is just a breakdown by age, by grade. This is where we came to that total number of 1,098 children being represented throughout this survey. This just breaks it down, 1,089. This just breaks it down by individual age or grade. So now we get into the enrollment analysis. So I'm going to tell you that we're going to start with pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, and then we first look at entry-level grades. So we're going to go through pre-kindergarten, kindergarten. The next grouping that we're going to look at is 6th grade, and then the grouping after that we're going to look at is 9th grade. We did, however, test enrollment potential at all grade levels. So you will see that at the end, but these are significant because they're entry level. We match them up with the way that the public school is structured. When students are graduating or finishing 5th grade in the public school and they're having to switch a building to go into the middle school, that's an opportunity to try to bring in new families. More often than not, we see once they're already established, let's say they're already in a high school, the odds of that family or that student then transferring to a new school while they're still in high school, that number starts to diminish. So we look at those entry-level grades first, and then we'll go through each of the individual grades from there. So in looking at plan for kindergarten, so among the current options for kindergarten, first choices among survey respondents are public elementary school is number 1, average of 27 students per grade. Private elementary school, 10 per grade. Catholic parish school, average 6 per grade. And then we broke that down from there. Blessed Sacrament had 5 students represented who currently are in kindergarten. St. Matthew, 5. Saints Peter and Paul, 4. The rest had 3 or fewer. Again, we look at this to find what is potential impact on the current Catholic schools that are out there. We don't want to suggest opening a Catholic school just to take enrollment from one that's currently available. So this is significant in knowing that the majority of families in this area are selecting public school for their children. Then we said, if the proposed pre-kindergarten were available to families, how likely would you be to enroll? So first, looking at pre-kindergarten, we're testing children that are between the ages of 0 and 2. And what we will see and what we focus on is that average per age, right? We don't want to say, okay, year 1, expect 15 kids. Year 2, expect 14 kids. Year 3, we take the average and we span that out. So in looking at enrollment potential for pre-kindergarten, you have an average of 16 per age who say they would definitely enroll in pre-kindergarten if a new Catholic elementary school were available, 14 per age who said likely would enroll, and 7 per age who said uncertain. We asked the same question when the kindergarten was made available. So you saw what their current options are and what they're currently selecting. When the proposed new kindergarten is introduced, of respondents with children now 0 to 4 who may enroll, 101, an average of 21 per grade, indicated that they would definitely enroll. 14 per grade indicated they likely would enroll, and 7 per grade indicated uncertain. The tables that you're seeing right now as we go through the enrollment analysis, these are the figures and the numbers that we used to put together enrollment potential at each of these age groups at the end. And I'll talk through that with you in just a minute. Now we wanted to test enrollment analysis at 6th grade. So this is now children who are currently 5 years old through 8th grade. Where do your children go to school currently? Number 1 again is the public elementary middle school, an average of 32 students per grade. Number 2, private elementary middle school, averaging 10 students per grade. Then it's the Catholic school, averaging 8 students per grade. Okay, so again, we're looking at potential impact. The Catholic schools we combined all together. So that's where we were able to come up with the 8 students per grade. Specifically, St. Matthew, there were 14 households represented that would choose St. Matthew for middle school. All the other Catholic schools had 4 or fewer households that selected it as their first choice for 6th grade. Then when the proposed Catholic school, go ahead and scroll down. When the proposed 6th grade is introduced, respondents with children 0 to 6 years and grades 1 through 5 who may enroll at the proposed school for 6th grade, now you're going to see that there's an average of 17 per grade who indicated that they definitely would enroll, 15 per grade likely would enroll, and 15 per grade indicated that they were uncertain. Similarly, we're going to look at 9th grade. Current options for high school, number 1, so now we're testing, you'll see that our tables are getting a little bit longer. Now that we're looking at 9th grade, we're asking this question of all families that currently have a 5-year-old through 8th grade. When you're looking at a high school for your child, where are you sending them or where are you planning to send them? First choice for enrolling in existing high school programs, again, number 1 is the public high school, averaging 32 students per grade. Private high school averaging 8 students per grade, charter school averaging 3. All of the rest of the schools listed averaged 1 to 2 students per grade each. So again, we're looking at majority in the public, private, and charter schools. Now we asked when the proposed 9th grade is introduced, now we start to look at that shift. The new Catholic high school for children 5 to 6 years, grades 1 through 8, as their first choice, now became 29 students per grade, who said yes, they would choose the Catholic high school as their first choice if it was available. Then we look at the way that the numbers have shifted. First choice for enrolling in high school, the public school was averaging 32 students per grade. When the Catholic high school was offered, that number dropped to 14 students per grade. Private high school went from 8 per grade down to 4. Charter school remained pretty consistent from 3 to 3. And the Catholic high schools, again, really saw no change. So again, I'm just going to reiterate that we're looking at where would these children be coming from. Are we pulling them from existing Catholic school options just to offer them a new and different Catholic education, or are we pulling them from, in this case, the public school to be able to offer an additional or alternative option, specifically Catholic, to those that are currently in our public schools? I mentioned that we also tested likelihood to transfer for students that are currently in kindergarten through 7th grade. This is a very preliminary table. I'm going to show you at the end a significant breakdown of enrollment potential for all grades, kindergarten through 12th grade. But you'll kind of see here again, the top group, kindergarten through 7th grade, you average 12 per grade who would definitely transfer if a new school opened. 12 per age would likely transfer, 14 said uncertain. When we shift down to the high school, again, this is pretty consistent with what we see around the country. Most high school students are unlikely to transfer once they've already started at a high school. So these numbers are a little bit smaller. These are for current 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. You're averaging 6 per grade that would definitely transfer, 8 per grade likely, and 9 per grade uncertain. We also tested 2 potential site locations for a proposed new school. Location A is a site in close proximity to St. Peter's Parish, and location B is a site close to the I-10 and Highway 46 intersection. I will tell you that the preferred location is a site in close proximity to St. Peter. That one received 197 households who selected that as their first choice. 139 households selected site B, a site close to the I-10 Highway 46 intersection, as their first choice. However, the potential enrollment between the 2 sites, it's relatively close. It's only a difference of 58 potential households. What you see underneath the highlighted line, we'll use site A as an example. Someone fills out the survey and they say, my first choice and location is site A. The following question then asks, what if site B were chosen? Let's say your first choice and site is not selected. How likely would you still be to enroll your child? So those percentages that you see under there, you still have all but 5, 6, just about under 7% who would still definitely likely or are uncertain in enrolling, even if their first choice for the site was not selected. And vice versa for site preference B. We also went through and we broke down tuition willing and able to pay. We did this based on elementary, and we did this for high school as well. So you'll kind of see the breakdown there. Obviously, they're in order of dollar amount, but to give you a little bit more of an understanding, for the elementary, 34% of respondents indicated a willingness and ability to pay $10,000 or more for elementary tuition. 17% indicated $7,000 to $9,999. 29% indicated $4,000 to $6,999. And 21% indicated up to $3,999. I'll talk through with you in just a second also how we use that data to kind of shift the enrollment potential based on families' willingness and ability to pay tuition. High school, go back up to high school. Thank you. High school's on the right. 49%, so almost half, indicated a willingness and ability to pay $10,000 or more in high school tuition. 15%, $7,000 to $9,999. 17%, $4,000 to $6,999. And 19% indicated a willingness to pay up to $3,999 for high school tuition. Then we asked, would your decision to enroll change if financial aid lowered your cost? So in terms of the potential need for tuition assistance, 64% of respondents said that their decision to enroll would change if financial aid lowered their cost. Out of those 64% that said yes, 29% indicated that they would need a little of the tuition, 28% indicated some of the tuition, 22% half of the tuition, 17% most of the tuition, and 4% indicated needing full tuition. So that's also very telling too, though, that that percentage went down as the need for tuition assistance went up. So that's also another significant piece that we look at. Not only how much are you willing and able to pay, but again, how much of that would you need? That's important when we then are able to say, here's your enrollment potential for kindergarten, for example. Here's your enrollment potential for 9th grade. We might have a handful of families who say, yes, if there is a Catholic high school, I am going to send my children, but only if it's $100. That's not realistic, right? So that's where I'll talk through kind of where our percent reductions also come in when we're calculating and figuring out that enrollment potential, because we have to look at how many of them would actually show up if that school opened. Out of the, what's very telling though in this table, so 64% said their decision to enroll would change if financial aid was offered, but 78% of them don't think that they would even qualify for financial assistance. So now here's another perception issue. Number one, we have the perception that Catholic schools may not be affordable. Number two, are we really letting people know that it's affordable and that tuition assistance is available to them? The trend that we're seeing around the country right now is it's really the middle class who's being left out of this. Because a lot of times we are providing tuition assistance first and foremost to those that need it the most, and then it's gone, and then you have the families who can afford to pay full tuition, and we're losing the families that are in between. So that's a big piece of kind of what we're looking at to say, again, how do we make sure that families know that a high quality Catholic education is available to them and is affordable if that's what they want? We also looked at travel time. So again, we broke it down by elementary, middle school, and high school. Responses are consistent amongst all three. All prefer 20 minutes or less. 67% for the elementary school indicated 20 minutes or less. 66% for middle school and 61% for high school. So that's pretty consistent. We asked if the need for bus transportation, if having bus transportation available would change their decision to enroll. Only 37% of respondents said yes. So this was not determined to be a high need for families in being able to say, yes, I would go to this school as long as transportation were provided. So the next section that we're going through, again, this was a question that was filled out by all respondents that have children, whether they were interested in the school or not. We asked them, what are your decision-making factors? When you are going to find a school or search for a school for your children, what are those things that you say, this is what it has to have? In rank order, the top 9 key factors, number 1, safe and secure environment. This is, again, a trend that we are seeing around the country. First and foremost, parents want to know that their child is safe and secure at school. Number 2, caring and concerned teachers. Number 3, moral and character development. 4, teachers with subject area expertise. So right now, those top 4, they scream culture, they scream teachers, qualifications, caring, loving, community. Then we get into academic rigor. That showed up number 5. Next is college prep curriculum, inspirational and motivating faculty, up-to-date technology, and number 9 was Catholic faith, instruction, and values. Now I want to speak to that for a minute though too, because there's 2 reasons. One, we could say 9. Catholic faith is number 9 out of the reasons that parents are choosing a school. Well, first we can say that we know the priority of faith in people's lives has unfortunately started to dwindle. Second, they're filling out a survey for a Catholic school. So we also have to know that there's an assumption here also that if it's a Catholic school, I expect the Catholic faith instruction and values, but I also want all of those other things. So there's two ways to look at that on why that Catholic piece falls number 9 in terms of top decision-making factors for families when choosing a school. The next question we asked, and this is again, it's really important because we know the reputation of BISD. We know the public schools are viewed as strong. They're academically rigorous. We want to look for an opportunity to not say, how can we be like them? How can we offer what they're offering? How can we compete with them? That's not what we're trying to do here. We want to look at how can we be something different? How can we offer something that the public schools don't, that parents are interested in, that they're looking for? So this question breaks it down by programs of interest. So again, in rank order, top 9 programs, number 1 is advanced classes for upper grades. 2 is dual credit courses. 3, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. 4 is daily, weekly mass and classroom prayer. 5 is world languages other than English, French, Latin, Spanish. Next is advanced computer programming and robotics. Community service opportunities. Student support services for special needs and diverse learning abilities. And number 9, global education. Just some additional pieces that were asked. When asked if a new Catholic school should open in the Boerne area, 54% of respondents said definitely yes, 21% said likely yes, and 16% were uncertain. 59% of all respondents are willing to make a one-time donation or a 3-year pledge to support a multi-million-dollar capital campaign to build the school. Out of those respondents, 57% are interested in making a one-time donation, 43% are interested in making a 3-year pledge. 25% of all respondents would like to volunteer their time and talent towards the study and possible building process. So again, we look at interest and we look at investment. Here's where all of the data that was just shared with you really draws down to enrollment potential. What you're going to see is that the number that I shared with you previously, when asked if a kindergarten were open, how likely are you to enroll your child? From that response, we received 21 who said that they would definitely enroll their child in kindergarten. We then increased that by 20% to adjust for non-respondents. What that means is the family didn't have an opportunity to fill it out. Sometimes we have families who never fill out surveys. So again, it's a metric that we have developed to say there's approximately 20% more that we can add to that definitely will enroll. From there, though, we then reduced that by 36% for potential non-enrollment due to cost. That's the example that I shared with you previously. What we did is we said, how much did parents say they were willing and able to spend on tuition for elementary school? We kind of had to set a bar, right? And we said, average tuition right now, right, we know is just under $6,000. For those who maybe selected $4,000 or less, we looked at what percentage of respondents selected that, and then we reduced that definitely would enroll by that percentage. Okay? So what we come down to is subtotal for definitely would enroll is 16 for kindergarten. You'll notice that the reduction percentages get higher the further down the enrollment table we go. What that means is those who said that they definitely would enroll, 36% of them probably were not willing and able to pay an adequate tuition rate. Those that said they were likely to enroll, that percentage increased to about 59%. 59% of those respondents were not willing or able to pay an adequate tuition rate. And similarly, for uncertain number of students who could enroll, we reduced by, definitely would enroll by 36, likely to enroll by 43, uncertain by 59. Total potential kindergarten enrollment after those increases and reductions is at 31 students. We did the same for 6th grade. Again, the reduction percentages are the same because it's in the same category of tuition as middle school. So definitely would enroll in 6th grade, we had 17. Increased by 20, reduced by 36, we ended up with 13. Likely to enroll, we had 15. Reduced by 43, we're down to 10. Uncertain about enrolling in 6th grade was reduced by 59%. That number was 7. So total potential 6th grade enrollment is at 30. In looking at 9th grade potential enrollment, these percentages for reduction are higher because, again, we had to look at willingness and ability to pay a high school tuition. Definitely would enroll, we had 13. We increased by 20%, reduced by 59%. That brought us down to 6. Likely to enroll, we had 13, increased by 20, reduced by 66%, brought us to 5. And uncertain about enrolling, increased by 20, reduced by 69%, brought us to 1. So total potential 9th grade enrollment, we're at 12. Okay, leave it there. Thank you. So what does all of this mean? Here's the part that I know you've actually been waiting for. We know and we heard through our meetings, through our focus groups, through our listening sessions, that there is a desire for a Catholic school in the Boerne area. What you've seen tonight now is the data, the demographics, the long-term sustainability. We're looking at short-term, long-term. What does that look like? Can this be a reality in this area, right? We tested for a PK-12. Again, there's an opportunity to fill a geographic niche among educational options. We know that right now the options are limited for families. We know that a lot of families are seeking out a Christian education because it's what's available and it's what's most convenient to them right now. They see it as worthwhile to drive and at least provide a Christian education, since a Catholic education for most does not seem to be accessible and available to them. And again, you saw that in the enrollment numbers, that majority of the students in this area are attending public school. Survey results indicate an interest in a school where parents are looking for a program that provides the children with high quality academics in a Catholic environment in proximity to the parish. We also heard that loud and clear through our meetings, that if there's a school, there needs to be accessibility to a church. Parents want the children to be able to celebrate the sacraments, go to Mass, have pastor presence. Those were definitely 3 key pieces that we heard throughout our time here. The community demographics, again, we focused in both Kendall and Bexar counties. Steady growth. This provides that critical mass for a new school to be considered. And the cities and towns that are around there, again, you're seeing sustainability and growth in those areas could serve as another source of enrollment. The greatest level of growth is and will continue to be in Bexar County and the cities and towns in proximity to the proposed school site. You saw, based on the school age population trends, again, over the next 5 years, those are continuing to remain stable and increase by 2026. So we know that the general population of the study area is sufficient to support a new school. The trend plus the number of children in our parishes who are not currently enrolled in a Catholic school provides the critical mass essential to both opening and sustaining the proposed school. Effective marketing, recruitment, and tuition assistance opportunities would positively impact future enrollment. Through our time, we were able to meet with the superintendent at BISD as well as the former superintendent, but we also learned that this year they set an all-time record reaching over 10,000 students in the Boerne Independent School District. A percentage of these, again, as you saw, are students that are Catholic who are not enrolled in a Catholic school. So when we look at potential market, we look at the level of growth in the number of school-age children, it would certainly support a new Catholic school if the level of interest among families is high. However, with a new school brings about greater competition, right? We know what's out there currently. We know the type of competition that exists right now. We need to look at what that will look like if a new school is brought to the area. Public and private schools provide a level of competition. Initiating and implementing effective marketing, recruitment, along with a quality program, a clear mission, and strong leadership are imperative in order to increase or sustain market share and enrollment. And I can't stress that enough. Leadership, whether it's pastor leadership, principal leadership, the teachers that are in your school, you saw it in those survey results. That's what parents are looking for. That needs to be strong right from the beginning. A significant number of respondents selected likely would enroll, definitely would enroll. Parents may wonder what the school will actually offer and have in place for their children. The new school will need to prove itself to realize the enrollment potential measured in this study. And similarly, those that indicated uncertain about enrolling, they will sometimes kind of sit on the sidelines and wait and see, okay, this new school opens, let's see what it has to offer, and then we'll make a decision whether we want to send our children or not. So there's a few different variations there on when parents choose to send their children. Of key significance in considering a new school is the availability and affordability of land. Again, this is also an issue that the public school district is facing and dealing with at this time. All options need to be considered regarding size, location, grades that are offered, both short-term and long-term. The data shows that the potential for a Catholic PK-12 school in the Boerne study area is high, given the school-age community, Catholic demographic trends and projections, and there's minimal potential impact on current Catholic schools in the Archdiocese if a new school opens in Boerne. The last table that I would like to share with you, can you go all the way down to grades 1 through 12? Just be the last page. All right. Hopefully you can see that. So I had mentioned that we were actually testing entry at all grade levels. And so those same reduction percentages that you saw for those entry level grades, pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, 6th grade, and 9th grade, we applied those for all grade levels. So what we did here is we took 1st through 8th grade, and this was based on the transfer question. How likely would your child, who is currently in 1st through 8th grade, how likely would they be to transfer if a new school opened? I'm going to kind of shift you then over to the far right, and I'm going to read these numbers off to you because I know they're still a little bit small. But in terms of looking at 1st grade, total enrollment potential, that number is 32. 2nd grade, 28. 3rd grade, 38. 4th grade, 32. 5th grade, 38. 6th grade, 29. 7th grade, 18. And 8th grade, 24. We did the same for high school. How likely would they be to transfer? Again, as I mentioned before, these numbers start to dwindle a little bit more, just given certain situation and circumstances. But 9th grade total enrollment potential is 15, 10th grade is 12, 11th grade is 12, and 12th grade is 9. What we are recommending, based on all of the data that was just shared with you, given the potential, enrollment potential, there's sustainable enrollment for pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. 1st grade through 6th grade are also strong and need to be considered. We recommend building a single section school with the potential to be a double section school in the future. And I say that for a few reasons. Number one, I will tell you, we usually try to keep our numbers pretty conservative. And even in doing that, you see what those numbers look like. Is there potential? Is there opportunity? Yes. But we also have to look at, again, what's realistic and what can actually be achieved. There's also nothing wrong with a wait list. A wait list tells families that there's something special about this school, and even though I really like it and I want to get my kid in, I can't right now. Now that starts to bring about a little bit more interest in your school as well. Again, we talked about the affordability and availability of land. It needs to be closely analyzed. While there is sustainable enrollment for multiple grade levels, sufficient planning needs to take place in what the school can realistically accomplish. Given the perception of high-quality public schools in the market area and parent responses and what they are willing and able to pay for tuition, this new school has to offer what parents are looking for, what they will buy, and it must be marketed aggressively. The perceived quality of the education has to be high to account for the amount of tuition. Right now, you have majority of your families that are not paying tuition at all. How are you going to convince them or let them know that sending their child to this Catholic school is worth the amount that they're now paying? Finally, in terms of facility planning, there should be potential space for a high school footprint that can be expanded from or separate from the elementary school on the same property. So again, if we looked at could it grow into a high school in the future, are we able to build up the elementary and middle school? What does the future look like in terms of potentially having a high school? Given the enrollment potential in the younger grades, there is a strong possibility for expanding into a high school into the future. Now, I just shared a lot of data with you and a lot of information. And at this time, I would like to open it up if you have any questions. And I think, are you going around with that one? Okay.
If I can get it to work.
Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
I would like to ask how much land you would project would be needed for a complete package.
So if we are looking at a full pre-K through 12th grade, we would be looking at between 40 and 50 acres. Because when you start looking at the high school perspective now, you're talking facilities, athletics, fields, so between 40 and 50 acres for a PK through 12. Hold on, you're going to have to wait for the microphone so that the people online can hear you.
You mentioned before, you said one section, which could later be two sections. I'm not familiar with those terms.
Sure. So for an example, if you look at first grade and it says enrollment potential is 32, we would first ask, if you had one classroom of first grade, what is your maximum capacity? How many students are you willing and able to bring in? So we would recommend doing that, having a section as a classroom. One classroom per grade to start, with the possibility of expanding into two into the future.
Okay. So early on in the presentation, you led with the projection of growth in the area. And if we look at all the enrollment potential, that's based on who responded today and who has kids and what they would do. So aggressively, you know, today we're talking about theoretics, right? We're talking about theoretically what would happen. But between now and when a school could be put on the ground, you have to say, okay, we have to finish our analysis. We have to finish the fundraising. We have to finish the build. What's the most likely timeline from today to a building on the ground?
So that is a multifaceted question.
I agree.
And I would say just kind of from the general broad sense, let's say we were building a PK-12.
Right.
Right? And we're starting with elementary, younger grades, you're talking 12 to 18 months before opening. If you're looking at utilizing current facilities, you could start sooner, right? And then you plan out your building process after. We also have to look at, again, costs. Can we afford to do it? How many grades could we open with? You could build the skeleton to the school, right? And then furnish year over year as those grades continue to move throughout the school. But beginning to end, brand new school, PK-12, you're talking 18 to 24 months.
And how you know, we said growth is going to happen, but what we don't know is what the demographics of that growth will be. You know, you referenced in, I forget what age category, that there's a substantial diminishment in the population. I don't know, it would seem like an older
10 to 14.
Yeah, an older grouping. What kind of risk is there associated with the projection of growth, that the demographics, when we get to the point of a finished facility, that it doesn't reflect what the demographics are that we're basing the decisions on today?
Sure. So I will tell you that there's still as we're looking out specifically to that 0 to 4 age group, right? Regardless of grades, what we most often see is starting with a pre-kindergarten, kindergarten. So we want to be able to look at then, if we're projecting out over the next 5 years, this data is reliable over the next 5 years. So regardless of what age groups we're looking to bring in, again, you're not seeing, there wasn't a single zip code on that list that showed a decline in population. So if you're talking over the next 5 years in every single one of these age groups, on average, throughout all of those zip codes, you're seeing growth in all of them.
And I apologize, most of the zip codes on that list are completely unfamiliar to me, but some of those areas that you referenced when you were going through, I think I heard you say Monte Vista, and I can't imagine a kid from Monte Vista driving out here to a school.
Sure.
Right?
We pulled that, like I said, we pulled those zip codes based on the parishes that were part of the study and the Catholic. We also wanted to look at potential impact on the current Catholic schools. That's where we want to see, again, so what comes next in planning, right, is taking those zip codes. We know that families are willing to travel approximately 20 minutes or less. Which of those zip codes are most realistic to market to? What age groups? How do we market? So it's really being able to do a deeper dive now into the data. We wanted to be able to look at it, though, and say, is there long-term potential for this? Again, we don't want to look at this out 2-3 years and then we see just drastic decline in the child age population moving forward and we say, well, my goodness, you're going to end up closing in 5 years. So that's where we want a comprehensive look and view to say, what does it look like over the next 5 years? You're welcome.
Well, and thank you very much for your presentation, because it takes a lot to put together a report like this. Is it going to be available to us, for example, on the church website? Because there's too much to absorb.
Sure. Yeah. So we put together this executive summary specifically to this group. So between, whatever Father Norman decides.
Could we get the whole report posted to the website, to the church website, so we can look at all the tables and all of that? Would that be?
If Father Norman is okay with it, we are okay with it. Nothing that we've shared with you here tonight is confidential. Again, demographic survey data. This was the raw data that came through. So, yeah.
I'm not quite clear on, if this school were to be built, who owns the school and who signs the note for it?
So that is all part of what we consider phase 2. So right now we're wrapping up phase 1, right? And that was really just looking at, is this even something to consider? As part of phase 2 with us is the full financial feasibility study. And so what that means is now we need to plan what everything looks like if this school were to open. Part of that is governance and leadership. Part of that is, are we looking at parish investments? I will tell you, though, that we're shifting, especially now that we're planning what we consider more regional schools. While we know that this school will be a major part of St. Peter's Parish, parochial schools in the sense of how they used to exist no longer exist. We no longer have, okay, St. Peter's Parish and only the kids that go to that school attend that parish, right? So we're trying to really work with new schools and parishes that are potentially investing in them at viewing things a little bit differently, that we need to kind of shift away from the old model of parish investments and what can that look like moving forward. So I can't answer that for you right now, but that would be a significant big part of phase 2 that would have to be planned out.
I got a question. Did the BA Bernie High School and them, did they tell you that in the next couple of years we're going to have at least 2 or 3 more middle schools and 1 or 2 more high schools in the works?
So I heard the need for a new elementary school and potentially a third high school.
Yes.
But
and 2 or 3 middle schools or grade schools.
Yes, so they were very open about kind of, again, the growth, as I've shared with you again, the data on how many students are in there currently. As I mentioned, your biggest challenge here is the same challenge that they're dealing with, and that's the availability and affordability of land. So we know the kids are here. We know the kids are continuing to come. And now it's, again, being able to plan realistically to say, how can we accommodate to that?
Just a point of clarification, if I could. Are you recommending that you start off with grades 1 through 5, or is it 1 through 8? I got a little lost there.
Sure. So the way that we're going to kind of move forward from here is we're going to look at different scenarios, different possibilities, because again, we can look at numbers and we can say, yes, it would be great to, based on the numbers, we would say that you could start with a PK6. But again, is that achievable? Based on, again, land, current building usage, all of those things need to be considered. So what we're going to do then is kind of really look at different scenarios. What would that look like? And again, looking at land as an option right now is one of those immediate next steps.
Other questions? Hands up so I know where to go with the microphone.
Okay, this is something probably you don't have, definite answers to, but I'm just interested to know if you have an idea. So when we look at the total enrollment for the grades in elementary, it looks to me as though there would be 2 of every grade, with maybe the exception of 7th grade, because 38 is kind of high for a class.
Correct.
I don't know, and this is if all these numbers pan out and all of that. 2 of every grade, and then the high school would be, it looks like 1 of every grade for that. Do you have any thoughts about that, or is that along the lines of what you would be doing?
Let me just clarify. So when we talk about a single section and we look at the enrollment potential numbers, that is not us saying that your one classroom should house the numbers that you see up on that table.
Right.
What comes next is, let's say we have 32 potential first graders. What's our maximum capacity for first grade? We're going to cap it, let's call it 25, right? We're going to put a cap at, let's say, 25 for grades 1 through 6. Once we hit 25, that's where that wait list begins. But now that helps us start to plan again for the following year. Now, do we maintain our one section school? Do we have enough interest in enrollment potential to now open up a second section of that grade? Those numbers up there are us saying, here's how many potential first graders that you could have enroll in your school. We are not saying take a classroom of 32 first graders.
No, I didn't think
okay.
so, but okay.
Yes, but once that capacity is reached, then that's where the waiting list would start.
It would be the wait list,
Yeah.
so it looks like you would have one. My other question was, you had something up there under curriculum for global education. What does that involve?
So we're starting to see a trend specific. I don't know if you're familiar with the baccalaureate programs, IB programs that are, it's more high school based.
Okay, yes.
But really, again, as we're starting to see this shift to what's capable in terms of virtual education, we're starting to see more of a desire and a shift to kind of broaden children's horizons within the classroom from a global perspective. So really becoming global citizens, really kind of looking at those core values, the core services that the Catholic faith offers the children, and how do we branch that out of just our smaller community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm just a little confused. You said pre-K through 6th. 6th grade here is middle school. Pre-K through 5th is elementary. Are you saying you would have it through 6th grade just to start getting them into the junior high area? Or
Correct.
the middle school area?
Yep, so I had mentioned that pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, 6th grade, and 9th grade are considered entry points for a school. And so if you are able to build up your elementary, let's say you're pre-K through 5th grade, is there an opportunity to start building that middle school program with that first pioneer class, as we call them, and then you add on a grade each year after that. So then your middle school would build off of that pioneer 6th grade.
Other questions?
I'm assuming that you're saying phase 1, we're going to go into phase 2. And phase 2 is the land and the finances and things like that. Is there a possibility when we get into phase 2, the land isn't available, the finances aren't available? Is there still a possibility once we get into phase 2 where we say, never mind, this may not work?
Correct. Yes, every phase is independent of itself. And that's where, again, phase 1 was important just to say, do we even have this conversation. Is there even enough enrollment potential to do so? This study can stop at any given phase based on the exact points that you just mentioned. Yes.
When you keep referring to the land in 46 and I-10, are you talking out 46? Are you talking frontage on I-10? Can you be more specific about where and why that location?
So we always, unless there is a site predetermined before we come in to do a study like this, sometimes the building's already there or the land's already there. If we don't have that, then we always test two locations. Only because, again, we have to look at what our options are. So the two proposed site locations that were given to you are what were deemed ideal. Again, is it realistic right now? We don't know. So being able to say that it would be right around the I-10 Highway 46 intersection is one option. Where in relation to that specifically, we don't know yet. But we wanted to be able to at least test where people are interested and potentially would be willing to drive their kids to go to school. So that's why we test those two sites.
Is there a reason that we haven't thought about utilizing the land and the facilities that we already have, given the one section up, and then looking to grow for when we do have more potential for the high school, acquiring the land then? I was just curious as to, since we do have a good amount of land and facilities, why we're not thinking about putting those on the table.
I will tell you that kind of through the conversations that we are having, next step really is kind of that brainstorming. What options are in front of us, what's available to us, and what can we make happen? So I would say at this point, in terms of conversations and brainstorming, nothing is off the table. And so that's really kind of where these follow-up conversations are going to take place now that we kind of know what the enrollment potential looks like. What options do we have available? Mm-hmm.
With your recommendation on the table now, what has to be done and how long would it take to get the necessary approvals by the Archdiocese, whoever else is going to have to make those decisions, and then how long would phase 2 take, and what's that timeline look like?
Sure. I will say that in terms of next steps, that time frame ranges. Again, only because immediate conversations, again, need to take place around what grades are we looking to start with, how many students are we wanting and willing to have in each grade, are we using existing facilities, are we looking at purchasing new land, are we looking at building, are we looking at buying a building that's maybe already there and renovating it. Those are really those immediate next steps and decisions. I can't put a time frame on that only because of the unique situation that we're in here in terms of really needing to be able to weigh out all options. If and when we would start phase 2, once we have a definitive plan in mind, that's about approximately a 4-month time frame as well, to be able to look at, again, are we buying land? Are we using existing facilities? Are we renovating? How much does that cost? What does the governance structure look like? What does the academic programming look like? All of that now in phase 2 needs to be decided, because now we're going to put together a full financial projection based on enrollment, tuition, academics, all of the above.
I saw your numbers on the financial aid, families requiring it. I was curious, though, I'm not clear. Do those numbers apply to families that have multiple kids that would be enrolled in the school?
That was by respondent. So some have 1 children, some have multiple. So that would have to be sorted additionally to be able to sort based on if they only selected 1 checkbox in that age group, what were their responses, and if they had multiple, what were their responses. Always the assumption, though, in looking at those is to assume that it's for 1, and then know that especially the families that do have multiple children, you need to expect and anticipate to be able to provide more financial assistance.
Ma'am, I don't have a question, but I just have a comment that I'm sure many, if not everyone here, would share. But I know this is your job, but from day one, from the meetings in the classrooms and culminating with tonight, you all have been nothing but professional. And this is, in my humble opinion, just a very, very detailed and thorough study. And as a father and a grandfather, I thank you very, very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Other questions? Nope. Coach?
It's not a question. I'm blessed to have been a public school teacher for 43 years throughout the state of Texas. Born and raised Corpus Christi, went to St. Patrick's, in Corpus Christi, and on to that Orange School in Austin, and then Dallas-Fort Worth area. I can't tell you, as a member now of the Geneva School of Bernie staff, that's for several of your heads, a very, very strong Christian private school, and so you're familiar with Geneva School of Bernie, is that the number two aspects about that particular school I've talked about to parents and the athletes there, the students, is the fact of the Christian atmosphere. They want their children to be in a Christian atmosphere. And so I'm not going to say the words, build it and they will come, or the strength of prayers, which you can't, because you have to be on data here. We get that. We've got to have numbers here, But I promise you, they speak so strongly about the Christian atmosphere that's within that community there at Geneva that draws those students close together. They are at the 9th grade through 12th grade, each 9th grade, 10th grade level, they're at 60 students per class. That's at, once again, high school level. And of course, the quality of education. They have classical learning there. They teach Latin. And it's really an amazing academic atmosphere, but at the same time also the bad boy, the bad girl, they're the odd person out there. They do not, that behavior does not exist, and it's not accepted there. And those students are very, very accountable to one another. And once again, I was blessed to be part of the football program there. We had 36 athletes from freshman through 12th grade to play football. Is that said a prayer after every practice, after every game, and we played all the Catholic schools in San Antonio, is that a very, very strong Christian atmosphere that, you can't put a number on that. I got to get this back to you. Thank you. Thank you. And there are several students at Geneva School of Bernie that go to St. Peter's Church here.
Yes, definitely. Okay, any more questions? Speak now. Don't be shy. Okay, I'll turn it back over to y'all.
Yes, absolutely. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being present tonight. Again, it goes to show the commitment of the parish, the investment and the interest. We appreciate all your time and opportunity that you've spent with us throughout this process. We're grateful to be here tonight and just want to say thank you.
And I just want to thank Angela and Marie for coming in from Milwaukee to be with us. And we just had our steering meeting before this and now this tonight. And I'm sure that they'd entertain any more questions if you have some that you might want to ask more privately. Thanks again, and let us stand for a final prayer. Lord God, we thank you for all of the interest shown tonight and all of those participating here, both in the Cana Ballroom as well as online. And as we come to the end of this day, we ask your continued blessings upon this study and its findings and what we do going forward. Allow us to discern your will in this whole thing in making a decision about moving to phase 2 or not and what it holds for our future. We ask that you give us a good night of rest, that we wake refreshed in the morning to meet all of the challenges of a new day. We pray this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Good night, and thank you all very much.
Good night.